Hello, everyone, and welcome to McGill Cares webcast series supporting family and informal caregivers. I'm Claire Webster, a former caregiver, certified dementia care consultant, and founder of McGill University's Dementia Education Program. I work with a dynamic team of leading healthcare professionals to oversee the program, who include Dr. José Moret from the Division of Geriatric Medicine and Dr. Serge Gauthier, Professor Emeritus, formerly of the McGill University Research Center for Studies in Aging. McGill Cares is supported by the Amelia Saputo Community Outreach for Dementia Care. The McGill Dementia Education Program offers a comprehensive range of free resources to educate and support persons living with dementia, family and informal caregivers, healthcare professionals, medical students, and the public at large. One of our most important resources is our Dementia Companion Guide, which is available in 14 languages, and it can be downloaded for free from our website. And printed copies are also available from Amazon, and all proceeds go to support our program. And we also have an online education program, which is also free, 10 modules. People could go at their own pace, virtual support groups, and so many other resources. So please take the time to have a look at how you can be supported by our program. So today we are going to be discussing an extremely important topic, which is protecting vulnerable seniors from the risk of financial fraud. And I have a very special guest with me today, Kimberley Colquhoun. She is the Assistant Director of Westmount Public Safety. Westmount is a city that is located in Quebec, Canada. And throughout her 25-year career, she has been involved in projects directed at improving public safety and community engagement. In 2017, she helped create 2 new seniors programs to support the elderly within the community. So today we're going to get informed about the types of scams and frauds that are currently being used to victimize seniors. And we'll talk about the warning signs to watch for and practical steps that caregivers and families can take to safeguard their loved ones' assets. So before I begin my interview with Kimberley, I thought I would take just a few moments to go over how dementia impacts a person's ability to manage their finances and why they become vulnerable to potential frauds. So I'm just going to go over very briefly how dementia can have an impact on finances. And as I mentioned earlier, I was a former caregiver, and I actually had lived experience with my mother, who had many, many challenges in terms of managing finances. And what people sometimes may not realize is that sometimes the earliest signs of dementia, even prior to a person receiving a diagnosis, occur when people have trouble managing their finances, right? And it's with regards to certain types of a lack of decision making. The other thing that I often mention in my webcast is that dementia causes another illness that's called anosognosia, which means that the person living with the illness loses their sense of insight, loses awareness. So unfortunately, it may happen that they make certain decisions that they would have not normally made should they be cognitively well. Okay, so sometimes it will cause them to make certain unfortunate decisions. So an example would be that my mother, back in the days when we would be solicited by different charities and they would send pens in the mail or they would send you cards, right? My mother thought that she had to pay for all of these things. And I remember having to go to her apartment and finding like a stack of tax receipts from about 50 charities, because every time she had been sent cards or pens, she thought she had to pay for it, right? So it just takes away sometimes a person's loss of insight. So how does dementia impact a person's finances? Well, it could begin with memory loss. So a person may be forgetful, so they forget to pay their monthly bills. They may pay a bill twice or a few times, right? We see that often. They may lose track of their bank accounts. They may have difficulty finding their documents. As I just mentioned before, in terms of the impaired judgment, right? They could be falling victim to scams, which Kimberley is going to be talking to us about. But again, my mother would be solicited by, for example, at one point she received something in the mail from a dentist saying, we could remove mercury from your teeth. And my mother never had mercury in her teeth, but she went and all of a sudden I saw $10,000 missing in her bank account because she was so convinced, and this particular dentist convinced her that she did have mercury, right? So it really takes away your ability to properly think through certain, whether something is real or not, right? Difficulty completing complex tasks. So again, taking a checkbook. Is a person able to write checks? Dementia affects the way in which a person is able to even write. You'll see changes in their handwriting, looking at a bill and being able to understand how much am I supposed to pay, because there's so many numbers on this page, right? So it could even become a person could change the way their behavior, their what we call their emotional and behavioral changes, like become impulsive and start using their credit cards over and over again. Shopping every day, somebody that it could cause them to become compulsive shoppers, right? They could go to their bank machine and forget that they've withdrawn cash and go over and over again withdrawing money from the same bank machine multiple times a day, right? And really the errors. So it's and what's difficult with this is that managing a person's finances really represents their independence. So it's a very difficult process in terms of getting over involved in trying to take over, whether that's your spouse or your parents' finances. But you'll see many errors beginning to occur. As a result of this, and again, because of the loss of insight, people can become targeted for financial abuse and fraud, which we're going to go into, right? So again, we are all receiving these scandalous or fraudulent texts and emails. Sometimes we have to take a moment and pause and say, okay, is this really my bank writing to me, or is this really Netflix asking me for my password? And we really take a pause. Unfortunately, when you suffer from a neurocognitive disorder like dementia, you don't always have that ability to pause and think before you act, right? So you could really become vulnerable and fall into to become prey to these scams. We're going to go through with Kimberley what is the most current ones that are happening. The email scams, there's romance scams, there could be identity thefts that are occurring, right? Unethical sales practices. People that are being convinced to, we hear, I've heard stories in the media about people being solicited to invest in timeshare properties outside of the country, for example, or, that there's a great deal that they have to invest in all of a sudden, right? I mentioned before, unnecessary purchases. So, we really have to be careful. There's also, unfortunately, in the work that I do with families, where there's seniors even fall prey to fraud from their own family members, right? Sometimes family members will take money from their bank accounts. A grown-up child may move in suddenly with a senior and say, I'm their caregiver, and then end up, taking money from them. So unfortunately, we see some unethical practices that can occur to seniors, even from family members. So just a few tips. It's really about having these conversations as a family and saying, look, in the event that I am no longer able to manage my finances, or you see that I'm having some trouble, you should always have a member of your family or a close relative or a close friend saying, I would really want to appoint somebody as a power of attorney, somebody to protect my finances. Because the truth with a disease like dementia, the more it progresses, the more expensive it becomes with regards to care. So you want to protect a person's finances for future healthcare needs. So who would be that representative in the case that you can't manage, or in case that you say, wow, I'm having some difficulty? So really think about who you want to appoint to represent your wishes, and try to simplify the finances as much as possible. The days of receiving all these bills by mail are starting to become less and less. Sometimes if you can have as much as possible, maybe have automatic payments on a monthly basis to avoid having errors. Again, make sure that you're doing this with a person that knows your password if they have to get into your computer or into your accounts, right? And, if you're a family member that's concerned about your parent, again, like start monitoring their accounts if you can, like but in a way with some empathy and compassion, and not saying, I think you're losing your memory and I need to take over your finances, right? Everything has to be done with compassion. And what I say to caregivers is it really work with your healthcare professional. It's much easier if the doctor is the one who recommends to the patient or to the families when they're all together that you're having some memory issues. It would be a good idea that you have somebody help you manage your finances. So those are just a little bit. I don't want to take up too much time from the webcast today, but I wanted to provide people with these tips. And there's a lot of really good resources that you could look into, including the McGill the dementia education program that talks more about this. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into into my interview now with Kimberley. So once again, Kimberley, thank you so much for being my guest today on McGill Cares. And maybe you can start by just telling us about your role working in public security, as well as your personal, perhaps, relationship and interest in dementia and advocating and protecting seniors.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I find what you do so important as it has affected me and my personal life. Just a couple of years ago, one of my family members started to show signs of dementia. And here at work, I had just started to put in place a few programs, and it really meant a lot to me as I saw how difficult it is to be a caregiver in that situation.
So you've been with public security for 25 years. So I'm sure throughout your career you must have witnessed an unbelievable amount of different types of frauds and scams. So can you describe like what is going on out there right now? What are the most common examples of fraud and scams with regards to seniors? Please share as many stories as you can.
So here in Westmount, the population is mostly over the age of 70. We have quite a high population of senior residents here. And I find it's very important right now to go out there and find an information session regarding fraud. Many cities offer these information sessions. We had one here in Westmount hosted by a local bank to just inform residents of what's out there, because if you don't know, you could fall for these scams. And right now, the grandparent scam is unfortunately one of the ones that's popping up. It's been out there for years. And I've had experience here in Westmount dealing with a few of my seniors on my program who have reached out for help after falling victim to these scams. So basically, the resident received a phone call. The person claimed to be her grandson, and she didn't notice a voice change. She had no idea that this was someone else imitating her grandson, and he had asked for help. It was the police saying that he had been arrested for drug possession and he needed his grandmother's help. And they offered to not arrest him if she gave them $10,000, which would never happen. Once she called me, I said, when would the police ever call you and ask for money? But she just wanted to protect her grandson. She headed to the bank, took out the $10,000. And the scary part is they met her at her door. So she was referred to,
oh
yeah,
my gosh.
So I've had a few examples of this happen in Westmount. They pull at your heartstrings. They know that you'll do anything for your grandkids. So it's really important when you get calls like this, hang up. I know right away they tell you, you know what, if you don't cooperate, we'll make this difficult for you. They make threats. If you just hang up and then have a contact person, as you said, like friends, family, community, call someone who would know and get in contact with them and find out, is this a scam? Like, don't answer your phone. I have so many residents that have found a solution by just letting all the calls go to voicemail. If you have friends and family calling, set a time so that you know it's them. And then if you see calls on your answering machine that are important, ask someone about them. Call your bank. If your bank's calling you, you take your number that you have on the back of your card or on their website, call. Never call a number that's appearing on your phone. They can even imitate phone numbers so it looks like yours. Like you'd get a phone, like mine, for example, starts with 605. I've seen numbers come up on my phone, 605, and it gets you for a second. You think, oh, do I know this number? And then you answer. And then next thing you know, it's someone trying to get your information or someone saying they're your bank, the city, the CRA.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of these calls from the RCMP, right,
Mhm.
or Revenue Canada saying that you've been arrested. So are those still going on, or maybe you can explain that type of call in case people are not aware of those ones.
Those, and also because seniors are out there on social media, they get text messages, they have smartphones. So you have to be careful. You get text messages from Amazon, you'll dismiss it. If you're not someone who makes purchases on Amazon, you dismiss it, you erase the text, it ends there. But sometimes they get you. They figure out that, oh, maybe this person is a member of Desjardins Bank. So then you're like, oh, someone frauded me. You click on we're so busy that you don't think. I've almost clicked on them before. I'm sure most of our viewers have almost fallen for it as well. And you click on it and it's too late. They'll ask you information, or you just always go back to the source. You look up on your Amazon account, did something happen? You contact them directly. Don't answer any text messages. Your bank will not contact you by text. There's also a common one regarding parking tickets and speeding tickets that'll say, you haven't paid your fine. Click here for more information. So it's really important to know what the current scams are. And there are websites that can assist people. There are also those information sessions that you should look into in your community and see if I attended it as well. It was very informative. There are ones that existed that weren't on my radar, and it's very important.
So is it just random, or how do they select their victims? Do they like put a net out there and see who they can catch, or how does it work?
Typically, it's random calling. They'll try. And if you do answer, you may notice that then you'll get other calls the following day. They'll know that, oh, this one here has been noted that they answer the phone. Others, if you just ignore them after a while, you'll notice you'll get less and less calls. There are some that contact you by email, and those are random as well. They just send it out to any email that is identical to a certain field or within two types of email addresses. But it really is random most of the time, unless you've been targeted because your information has been leaked.
So could you talk a bit about the identity theft that occurs with social media? Because we hear about people that they've had their Instagram or Facebook accounts hacked. Like how does that work?
In those cases, people are often encouraged to just contact this either Facebook or Instagram or whoever it is, and then they'll lead you to how to create a new account. But those are just through information. There's so much information on Facebook. You know how many people I have come in and give me their email address that contains their date of birth? You just have to watch out what information you put out there. I'll even joke, like they'll tell me their email address and it'll end in 1951. And I'm like, is that by any chance your year of birth? And they're like, yes, it is. And I said, well, maybe put a random number, or I understand it's for you to remember it, but we provide so much information to everyone out there on social media, and we have to be careful. The photos on your Facebook account, sometimes maybe just take a little inventory and clean up what's on your social media, remove photos, make sure the security parameters are in place, that only the people you want to see your photos are able to view them. That's all important, because I can honestly go online and find information about most people. I can tell you perhaps their grandchildren's names, even. It's scary.
Hmm. So what can people do to protect themselves from falling victim to these scams? And what about like family members who are, who are worried about a parent or a spouse that has dementia? Like what are some best practices to put into place?
To reach out to your family members who are in an age group where they understand uh, the internet and social media. Because after the pandemic, many seniors got online and they didn't know how to protect themselves necessarily. I have residents who are on my program in their 90s who use Zoom on a regular basis, social media. They take yoga classes online. It's really impressive. But at the same time, they have to know how to protect themselves when they're putting their information out there, even paying for courses online to recognize a secure site versus a site that's been put out there to gather information. All these things, there are websites that exist. I had noted one that I thought was quite important. It's called the Senior Aware. That's a website where people can go on and there's resources. It keeps you up to date on what to watch out for.
And what happens, I mean, with regards to the bank, for example, I mean, what would happen if you click on one of these links and you end up sending $5,000, I mean, would the bank give back your money? Or like what happens in those cases? Like,
In some instances, I'm surprised the bank even it doesn't throw up a red flag when they see these type of transactions. Like my lady that I gave the example of earlier, she had gone to the bank in person and withdrawn $10,000.
Mhm.
I don't know how you would just present yourself at the counter without any questions. And I don't know what she said to the teller, but
Mhm.
she was able to get that money and pay. So I think there should be a few more security measures put in place at banks as well, just to make sure that seniors don't fall victim to taking out this amount of money and sending it off to these criminals.
Mhm. And so I know that you're trying as much as possible in the city of Westmount to be dementia friendly as well as to be senior friendly. So can you tell us about what initiatives you've developed at the city of Westmount to protect and support seniors?
So one in particular that really applies to people with dementia would be our VPR. It's our Vulnerable Person Registry. So in Westmount, even before we had this program in place, our officers are always out on the street 24/7 patrolling, and they know the area best. People would call and say that someone had wandered from a local residence, senior's home, hospital. We're in a hotspot here in Westmount where we're surrounded by major hospitals. There are quite a number of residents for seniors. So we always get the call that someone's lost. And as a result, the VPR was put into place where we have a simple photo of the person that's kept up to date with all their information and the person to contact. And this is for people who still live at home with a caretaker, but we do often receive phone calls from concerned family members saying they still go out for walks, but they never came back. And most of the time, we do find them within the city limits.
Because you have public security officers that are always patrolling in your area.
That's right.
Okay. So could you talk about some other initiatives that you've recently developed?
So the other initiative, we had a meeting here with our supervisors, and it was brought up that another city on the island had a program that was quite similar, where we offer a key box program along with daily phone calls, and it's called Good Morning Westmount. So there's a variety of services that we offer. So some people who still live at home with their husband and they want us just to have them on our radar, fill in the form and give us their medical history, some personal contacts, emergency contacts, and then they just want us to keep them in our file. Others, they live alone. Their family has left Canada. They all reside abroad, and they have no one here that can look in on them. So we started this program so that they could have a daily phone call along, and we work in collaboration with Contactivity Center here in Westmount, and they make the phone calls during the week. We make the phone calls on the weekend, and if ever someone doesn't answer or call in, we're able to send an officer to their home to check in. And once a few steps are followed, if no one answers, we do have a key to the home that they place in a key box that looks like this. So once it's sealed, no one has access. And once the officer arrives on scene, they have to break the box with their boot to gain access to the key.
Mhm. And so have you seen any other dementia-friendly initiatives that, let's say outside of Westmount that you would love to implement in your municipality?
Well, here I know that we do have some programs that have been offered through the library, and there is a need because I'm seeing a growing number of people, unfortunately, with Alzheimer's and dementia. In my family, it started quite young. I have a family member who was in her early 60s, and I had to once put her on our list and have my officers look for her as she had left the Montreal General while receiving treatment.
And so going back to these like the scams, I mean, how often are arrests made? I mean, are these these scammers, are they locally based or are they like how often can arrests be made of them?
as we've heard, most of these criminals are abroad or not in Canada. But there was an arrest made recently that was in the news where some people who were collaborators were here in Canada, and they posted a list in the media of these people and their names, which was quite interesting and a good step forward to try and take care of these scams.
And based on your experience, do you think people are afraid to report that they've been scammed? I mean, when you talk about, some of these criminals coming and showing up at people's homes, I mean, it's unbelievable that they know where people live and they show up. I mean, what would be your advice? Do you think that families should contact the police? Like, what should people be doing?
In the case of where I had given the example of my 90-year-old, she called me because she didn't want to call her family. Oftentimes, they're embarrassed that they've fallen for this scam. They don't want to contact anyone, or they fear that the people will return to their home. They're to call their local police department, and then they'll be given more information as to who they can contact, like the fraud department, the RCMP, depending on what type of fraud it was. And they can be given pointers as well on how to protect their information further from identity theft.
And so just one last question. I mean, what would be your hope or your advice to people as in general, and what would you like to see? How could we better protect, the seniors from and vulnerable people from these type of scams, or just us in general?
We just have to protect them. There's so many people out there that want to take advantage of them. They don't understand what's online and how it can harm them, even if they're not online, just by phone, and they're isolated. A lot of them were isolated since the pandemic. They want to speak to someone on the phone. So as a result, they fall for these scams because they're desperate to speak to someone, have a conversation. And we really have to look out for them. That's why these programs in the city of Westmount exist, is to try and protect them, have someone they can talk to. My officers get to know them, and it's so important. Like community, this program, even Good Morning Westmount, was put in place because I had always heard my grandfather say he would open his curtains at a certain hour, and his neighbor as well, and then they knew that they were okay. And if someone didn't open their curtains by a certain hour, they would then call each other. And this is kind of what this program is to me, is a way to check in for all these people that have no one checking in daily. And I'm so happy we can offer this service.
So for those people that are living in cities across the country, for example, that don't have that wonderful program, or to have local officers patrolling, I mean, I guess the best thing for them to do would be to contact their local police force, correct?
Well, there are also, I know, local organizations that will offer similar services. It doesn't always come from the city, or even a group of seniors will create their own. Recently, there were a few purse snatchings reported on Green Avenue here in Westmount, and it was in the media. And I was contacted by a community group saying, is there something we could do? Could we offer seniors a group where we could go together to the bank? And I said, I think it's a wonderful idea. That's how these programs start, is community groups that just want to help each other. And there's many different community organizations that offer like a calling tree or a daily check-in. You just have to do your research, and I would do it with a family member if you're not comfortable online.
And the resource that you mentioned earlier was Senior Aware. Is that correct?
Senior Aware, yes. And then the website is also offered in French, so you will probably be directed to the French website. And it was mentioned by the FADOC, which usually offers very up-to-date information on fraud and senior protection and resources.
Okay, so we will be posting that Senior Aware link on our Trusted Resources page. Well, Kimberley, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. I think we could probably spend like a 2-hour workshop just on how to people to protect themselves. So like you mentioned, I mean, I really encourage people, wherever you are living, if your community or your town hall or anyone is offering these types of workshops, please make sure to attend, because we can, regardless of whether or not you're living with dementia, we can all fall victim to frauds and scams quite easily these days. So thank you. This webcast is an initiative of the McGill University Dementia Education Program, which is funded by private donations. If you would like to make a contribution to our program, please visit our website at www.mcgill.ca/dementia. And if you would like to join our mailing list to be notified about upcoming episodes of McGill Cares or other important information about our programs and resources, please also sign up for our newsletter, or you can email us at dementia@mcgill.ca. Thank you for watching.